Good morning, tech experts, freelancers, and creatives all over the Philippines. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. My name is Apple David, your resident Tao Crowd ambassador. To all of you who are watching for the very first time, let me give you a quick backgrounder of what Tao Crowd is. Ang Tao Crowd is the fastest growing freelancer network for creatives here in the Philippines. That's from Manila to Baguio to Davao. It is for the Filipinos by Filipinos. At kung nagtataka kayo, bakit ba maraming tao ang sumasama or sumasali sa Tao Crowd? Well, basically, because of two main reasons. At una na dyan, it's because we're giving out 20 gigs every week in our Tao Crowd Slack channel with zero joining fees or zero project fees. And at the same time, you can also earn health insurance while you are in here too. So pretty amazing, right? Yes, definitely a yes. Plus, we have this. Tao Tuesday every month wherein we and our extreme panel of judges or panelists rather are giving away some tips, knowledge, and techniques para sa inyong mga freelancers for you to be able to be better in your craft. And this is actually our second Tao Tuesday. And so for those who are joining us again, we are glad to see you back. Pero para naman sa mga first time, welcome to Tao Tuesday. We are streaming live via Facebook and YouTube. So we would like to welcome the hundreds of you who signed up and are tuned in today. Gusto ko lang din i-share ang isang good news because we here, our community, is actually getting bigger and better and our partners are bagging more design gigs every week. Kaya naman, alam nyo na kung anong dapat gawin. And if you're not yet a part of the Tao Crowd community, you should join now. But this time, it's time to acknowledge and greet our Tao Crowd partners who have just recently leveled up. Let's watch this video. Congratulations to all our all-star partners, and I hope they serve as an inspiration to the rest of the community. For those who are watching, let me just tell you that our freelance partners level up in the community, and if they do that, they get even greater benefits. And so if you're not yet part of the Tao Crowd, you should visit taocrowd.com after today's session to know how to become a design partner. Now, I hope you're all excited as I am to begin our panel discussion. And alam niyo ba na ang topic natin today is going to be especially exciting for those design partners, web designers, and graphic artists na nanonood. Why, you may ask? That is because our topic for today's Tao Tuesday is Web Designers Build Your Brand. Create a killer online portfolio and get more gigs in 2021. And so, if that is your goal at yan ang gusto nyo mangyari, you are definitely in the right webinar. And so, to make it even more fun for all of you, we announced in our Tao Crowd Design giveaway last week, wherein you can get to share your most recent design work to us and then have a chance to win, listen very carefully, a Samsung A50. Wow, that is awesome. We will announce the winner at the end of this session. So, our esteemed panel of speakers lang naman ang kailangan yung i-impress dahil sila ang namimili ng ating winner. So, that is gonna be an exciting and thrilling experience for you guys and a tough job para naman sa ating mga judges. Today, we are joined by 5 speakers with a variety of design backgrounds. Here with us today are Tiger, Rachel, James, Andre, and AJ. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen.
Morning.
Hey, good morning. Hello.
Okay,
Morning. Good
so
morning.
I'm sure lahat ng mga viewers natin ngayon ay interesado malaman or marinig yung inyong mga success stories. So, bilang teaser or just a quick backgrounder, I have a few questions and then I'll ask each and every one of you and probably give us a tidbit muna for now. Okay, so here are our questions. Share with us how you started in the design and branding. What career or what challenges did you encounter early on in your career? And finally, what interesting projects are you busy with right now? So, how about we start with our very own CEO of August 99? Good morning, Tiger.
Hey, good morning, Apple. Great to be back with another Tao Tuesday. And my career started way back when I was 12 years old. My dad bought me an Apple IIc, and for anybody who remembered that, screens weren't colored yet. You know, it's kind of like the Matrix, green letters on a black screen. Learned to code a little bit and made a few text games and I think that's when I fell in love with all things digital. And then fast forward in the early 90s, I came from Manila to Los Angeles and I was going to go to school for design. I'd made that choice to do it, but it fell through. And what ended up happening is that I didn't have the right experience to get into a design job. So I was taking a lot of odd jobs, but I knew I wanted to get into design. And what ended up happening is I got into one job that said you need to know Aldus PageMaker. Now, maybe some of the older guys remember this, but eventually got bought by Adobe. But it's a layout program, and I was super nervous. And what happened is that I went to the library, I started studying, and eventually I took the test, I passed it, and I got into my first job, which is with Coldwell Banker, where I became a layout artist, and I started learning about print design. And back then, websites weren't a big thing. It was all about CMYK versus RGB for the designers out there. And I learned a lot about how to write headlines and how to work with real estate agents and developing their own personal, unique brands. So I was at the very lowest of bottom of the totem pole, and I worked my way up. And eventually, I became a creative director, where I started working with the top realty agencies around North America. And I really leveled up my skills too. And back in the day, it was not just PageMaker, there was Corel Draw, there was Illustrator. And I kept studying until I got to the point where suddenly all of these internet companies were sprouting up. This was the late 90s now. And Amazon was still a small company. The prevalent browser at the time was Internet Explorer. Google was still coming out, and most websites were text-based. And from there, I decided, hey, I'm gonna quit my job. I need to ride this wave of the internet. It's so exciting. I was so passionate about branding. I thought I had enough of a body of work to begin, and I just started with my initial group of clients that I had met in real estate, and 30 of them signed up. And back in the day, you had to explain that a website was what you needed to learn and where you needed to be. You had to educate people. Nowadays, it's kind of like a given, diba? So I think one thing is I went from a designer to going into the business of design, and I learned a lot of that. Eventually, I met my partners, John and Luigi, 20 years ago, actually in August 99, which is why August 99 is named that way. And we formed a company called The Design People. We got an office by the beach. We ended up landing clients like MySpace, for one. We landed a lot of the big real estate companies. We are doing websites, e-commerce, all sorts of stuff. But eventually, what really drove our success was focusing in on where I originally had started, which is real estate. And we built a company called Agent Image. Nowadays, we're in the Philippines, we're in LA, and we produce maybe about 100 websites every month. And from there, uh, I'd say recently, within the last 5 years, I formed another company, called Loft and then Dojo, and now I'm more in the business of creating brands, which is really what I love. I love starting new businesses, building the brands for them, building the team behind them, building the culture. But it all stems from design, and that's kind of my origin story, Apple.
Thanks, Tiger. Such an inspiring journey. We will hear more from you in just a bit, but right now, let me introduce the CEO of Arsenal Content Marketing. We have Andre Tania. Andre, what is your story?
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Andre. I started my career actually as an account manager. So back then, digital marketing in the Philippines was basically SMS or Bluetooth marketing. So having started my career back then, I basically learned or progressed with the local market. So as people were starting to embrace social media, display advertising, and all that, I was servicing clients and selling these products. So I wasn't actually involved in the creative process of anything. I was behind the scenes doing the strategy and pitching our ideas. And then suddenly I found myself watching 3 hour videos on YouTube of people just talking. Basically, it's Joe Rogan and all of these, YouTubers who are creating long format content, and it's engaging me. So I realized, why am I not watching anything that's created locally? So that basically gave me an idea. So I left the company. It's a over a decade old digital marketing agency. I sold my shares and I decided that I wanted to start something new. So I wanted to get into production and video, directing videos. I bought my first camera. It was a Sony A7R3. Played with it a lot, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and then it propelled us basically to where we are right now. So my understanding with what the client wants on the other end and what the producers should provide them on the other side of things is basically an advantage, even if I wasn't really in the design space initially. So one of the biggest things that we've been working on right now is we are launching the partnership of BYS Cosmetics and Park Seo-joon. So he's one of the biggest Korean drama actors. So that was a pretty interesting project. It's we just launched it last month, and the numbers are ridiculous. So what's good also with my digital marketing know-how is we know how to measure data and the performance of our content. So we can instantly, flip the switch, shoot again, pivot anytime we want to. So that's my story.
Thank you, Andre. You got me at Park Seo-joon. But really, looking forward to the tips you'll be sharing about our topic for today. But up next, we have AJ Dimarucot, a CDAP co-founder. AJ, how did you get started?
Hey guys, good morning. Thanks for having me. My story, it's a very, very long story. But it started in the 90s when I was in engineering in UP, studying, overstaying essentially for about 7 years, I believe, when I should have been out there by fifth year. And that's when I discovered back in the 90s this little software called Adobe Photoshop. At that time, it was Photoshop 4. And then I discovered, kind of like Tiger, the internet. And I taught myself a little bit about HTML and how to make websites. And that's how I got my first job, just essentially creating a personal website and buying a domain. At that time, I wish I still owned the URL chinelas.com. And I put up all my experiments in Photoshop. And that's how I got my first job actually, as a web designer for a startup back in early 2000s called 25 by 8. It was a company by the founder of Smart, Doy Vea. And and then I left that for about after 2 years and started the digital department of this huge global ad agency called Ogilvy and Mather. So we built their digital team. I was essentially kind of like the first hire to become everything from the web designer to the person who you would cost out projects and actually have to hire developers and designers and then present that to the client and try to win pitches. And so we got to work with brands like Nike and probably the biggest company in the world at that time, which was Nokia. Yeah, unfortunately, they're still around, but not really as relevant. But and so I spent about 5 years doing that, just being a web designer and interactive art director, and then decided to go the opposite direction of freelancing, essentially, because at that time my wife and I were planning to get married, and I had to augment my income as an art director, and so I looked for gigs online on a website called Craigslist, and found all these tiny gigs online, and I joined some T-shirt contests and won some business, and quickly discovered that freelancing is spending less time than in an ad agency, about 12 hours to 14 hours a day, discovering that you can earn so much more, basically two times, three times your Philippine salary, spending less time and spending more time with your family. So I've been doing that for the last 12 years, working from home. Pre-pandemic, I was a remote worker, even before it was school, and got to work with the biggest brands in the world, including like Nike and Jordan brand and Adidas, and just this year, because of in the pandemic, got to work with brands like the NBA and Adobe, and yeah, and so here I am, trying to help Filipino creatives, essentially telling my story and telling that journey to let all the Filipino creatives know that this is very possible for everyone, and it's really available for everyone. And thanks to you guys, Tao Proud, for also doing this kind of platform to allow more Filipino designers, get more clients abroad.
Thanks, AJ. I'm sure you mga viewers natin are excited to hear how these experiences of yours help you in being successful. Next up is a pretty familiar face here on Tao Tuesday. We have Rachel, the creative director of August 99. Rachel?
Hi, guys. Thanks for inviting me back again for our second Tao Tuesday. But yeah, just to give you guys a quick background on how I started in my career. Basically, I wanted to, ever since in college, I wanted to be around creative people. So that's actually why I chose my course, fine arts. I also wasn't really good with math and science, so I wanted to, I decided for myself that I wanted to, work in a creative field. So I chose art management, thinking that I would be, curating exhibits in an art museum one day. Though over time, I realized that that really wasn't for me. And that was also the time when the internet was picking up, and like as Tiger mentioned earlier, like websites were becoming a thing. I actually found a company that was very nearby our house. So I was like, yes, I wanted to work here. I wanted to see if I could apply everything I learned in terms of art school, in terms of art theory, into a digital platform instead. And it actually worked out. It was really hard at first because I didn't really know anything about web design per se. There was a lot of jargon to learn. There was a lot of terminologies and technology to wrap your head around. But thankfully, I had great mentors along the way who actually, boosted my confidence and, were very patient with me as I was learning the ropes. And I guess fast forward to 11 years later, and here I am designing and working with designers on like really exciting web design projects mostly for real estate clients in the US, as we covered in last month's webinar. But yeah, really working on some amazing projects for like VIP clients and celebrities even. So it's very exciting to actually, apply what you learned back in school to your actual work. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks, Rachel. Looking forward to the tips and techniques that you will be sharing in just a bit. But now, finally, we have the head of user experience at August 99, James. James, welcome to Tao Tuesday.
Hey, hello there. Thanks for inviting me over, like Talcra. This is my first time to join you. I'm the design director for August 99. We're currently like working closely with the product team, with a bunch of like developers, designers, and even like product managers as well. So back in the days, I've been like playing around with computers. I was fortunate enough to like use a Pentium, like so that kind of added my like curiosity with design, and then that came about to find the influences from another like designer that I like came across over the internet. That was like Jens Carlson from Desktop Imperium. He's with Your Majesty in New York. It's an agency that deals with marketing and a lot of like agency work. So that kind of inspired me to find out what are they doing, what do they do, what kind of like work are they giving out to clients. And I landed my first job with a company based in Hong Kong, which in Makati, who does like web design and Flash. Then they hired me as like a Flash designer, which I actually didn't know how to do it. And the CEO who actually interviewed me told me, would you know Flash? No, sorry, I don't know. Can you try it? Yes, I can. I can. Then I went back home, gave it like a good run of like uh, teaching myself on how to do it, and eventually I sent over like a very short like 30-second video in Flash. And then the following day he just like called me and then I said, hey James, how's about like being for me? Great. So I started working with him, like with a few designs, met a couple of like designers along the way, and then that got me to like a big interest on web design. And that started everything from multimedia to like print designs, web design. Now, a couple of like years after, I went back to like freelancing because I wanted to learn more on how to do it by myself, like selling myself to like other clients. So I met like some friends who actually referred to me from a couple of like local agencies and companies that I work with. I can't actually tell who are those like agencies because it's on NDA. But yeah, it was like a big learning experience for me to work with agencies, talking to like stakeholders, like big people who are like decision makers with the companies. So that was actually like a challenge for me that I lacked the control of like creativity. And then where I learned from them is it has to give like the best build up with them that they would trust you on how you deal with like design problems with them. And then along the way, uh, we got to know everything from that and learn from them by experience. So I guess that's one of my what I wanted to share with people. Uh, and what in interesting projects that that are like I'm busy now is want to mention is Q Time. It's a platform that tracks people with work anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. We have currently like about 20,000 users right now using that software, which is based on like multiple locations. And we're really excited to like bring more features to that kind of platform.
All right, thank you, James. To our viewers, take note, that was just an intro. But I am sure you're already able to pick a thing or two that will help you in your careers, or maybe if you're still figuring out your career. Now, to our panelists, all of you guys have design careers spanning from decades over decades in the industry, and there are tons of designers out there. So I'd like to ask you, how do you make sure that your work stands out from the crowd? Let me go back to AJ. AJ?
At least in my experience, I think the best way to really stand out from the crowd is not try to be everything in the beginning, and as you pick up skills as a designer or a web designer, illustrator, or whatever, you need to focus on a certain set of skills first, and really niche down on that instead of trying to become everything at the same time. When I started out back in the day, it was always about I had no background, I had no experience, I had no education on it. But I said to myself one day that I would be a web designer, and that's what I would do. And that's how I got to work with a startup and a big ad agency without really support of a traditional background of education. And because I created the work and created a portfolio of just web design, and I tell young students now is try not to put like all kinds of work in your portfolio. It doesn't show what you are about. It only shows that you know the software. But you have to develop a skill set within a very very particular skill set and only show that kind of work. And I did that before, only websites, and then when I got tired of that, I just focused on t-shirt designs and just created a portfolio with just all the t-shirt designs that I created. And that's how I got to work with the biggest brands, because they noticed that. And yeah, to me, it's really about niching down and being very good at one particular skill. Uh, and then as you grow older, develop other skills to complement those projects.
Interesting insights, AJ. Thank you for that. Tiger, how can I make my work stand out?
Okay, so I'm going to take it from a little bit of a different aspect, which is algorithms and testimonials. Okay, so if you look at every website, and I think it's really important to have a portfolio of work, as AJ was saying, but you also have to label it correctly, and you also have to have your clients recognize it in order for you to get more work. So let me give you a very specific example. If you look at Behance or Git or even Odesk and a lot of these other websites, it's important to get all of your work that you want to show, to AJ's point, and show your best work, right? Don't show all of just show your top 5 or 6 things. And after that, make sure that you understand that these platforms also reward you when you put client testimonials on it, when people thumbs up your work, right? And what happens is the more eyeballs you get on your work, the more work you're going to get, right? So I think a lot of people kind of post and pray. They upload their portfolio and pray that work comes. You have to do a little bit more than that. You have to describe your work using hashtags, describe your work using the process, the creative process you go through it. And what's going to happen is, since all of this in a platform isn't reviewed by a human, it's a mathematical formula that's putting the best work up top, then you're going to get more chances of more people looking at your work. And then multiply that over lots and lots of different websites. So don't just put it on one website, put it on a lot of websites, and even on websites that you might not think are portfolio websites. So for example, LinkedIn, great example. A lot of people don't know that you can put your resume on LinkedIn and then add photos of the work that you did in your profile for each company. And at the end of the day, you're trying to get hired, whether it's full-time or whether it's gigs. And the best way you can do that is by a mixture of visual identity as well as keywords. So that's my input on the other side.
Thanks, Tiger. I hope our viewers were able to take down notes. Now, to James. James, how do you make your work stand out?
Yeah, essentially you're like selling your own brand. So you kind of want to like establish yourself as a designer. Uh, let's say you set your own style, represent who you are, tell the audience how you work, and show the right brand image. It's really essential that it doesn't have to be like complicated enough for like somebody who looks at in your portfolio or collection of work that you present. It's more important to show how deep is your like learning or how skilled are you in this specific creative field are you working on. Or let's say you're like great on lettering or graphic design. It has to show in your portfolio to stand out from the rest. Because if you're giving out everything in one go, you're plainly showing that you're doing as a beginner level in those kind of like uh, creative fields that you're working on.
Thanks, James. I'm actually learning a lot already. And this is just what? The first question. Now, next, Rachel, your thoughts?
How to make your portfolio stand out? Gosh, I think you really need to approach it as if it's like a marketing project, even, and the product that you're selling is yourself, is your talent and your skills. So, I mean, what would you do when you're faced with a marketing project? You think about the branding. So basically, you need to come up with, well, obviously your name, but maybe even a logo to go along with it, or a slogan that best represents who you are, what you do. Even come up with the core graphics that you will use to, present your work and your portfolio to your audience. That should help. Even creating your own like signature color that you will be using to represent yourself. That actually helps to carry that message to your audience. And I guess one tip I might give to like freelancers or anyone who's building their portfolio for the first time, and something that I notice whenever I'm sorting through different portfolios and resumes is it actually helps to kind of stage your work. So basically, don't just throw in, JPEGs and images left and right. Sometimes there needs to be some sort of care and effort that you want to put into presenting your work to your audience. So you might want to create a professional presentation deck, whether that's a PDF or a website. Or basically just a more professional presentation. So don't just show it as is. I mean, show it how it's supposed to be received by your client. So if you're showing like product design, packaging design, logo design, make sure it's professionally presented. It's framed well. It has, breathing room, white space around it. And sometimes it also helps to include a short explanation of these projects. The people reviewing your work, they don't know the backstory. They don't know, the goals behind these different projects. So, you maybe copywriting isn't your forte per se, but sometimes it helps just to drop in a few lines and notes just so they know where you're coming from and how you helped your clients succeed with their business and their branding. Um, and I guess lastly, just make it easy to sort through and navigate through. That can be a reason why, HR professionals or, reviewers, they can pass over your portfolios. It's hard to navigate. They just can't find what they're looking for. So those are some tips I'd share with you.
Thanks, Rachel. Now, Andre, on to your tips and tricks.
Hey, so it's pretty hard to be the last speaker because everyone pretty much said everything already. But it's really all about context. Putting like Rachel said, these people, your viewers, doesn't really know anything about the project or what the design is about. So you better put context there. What makes the project interesting to you? Did it even become showcased in your portfolio? So complete those things, and you'll be good to go. But one thing to add also is you need to really clearly define in your head what kind of customer or client are you looking for, and talk to them directly. So talk to, for example, are you looking to get hired? Are you looking for freelancing gigs? Are you looking to collaborate more? your messaging and the tone of how you write your bio, how you write the context, the background of your projects, include that there. So be present also in places where these people are. So if you do a bit of research, if you're looking to get hired again, it'll be good to utilize all of the native functionalities of, let's say, LinkedIn, like Tiger said. If you're looking to get hired, maybe in the Philippines, LinkedIn is not the best place for designer, I would like to say, but just spread out all of your previous work, put context into it, talk directly to the audience that you want to convert, and they'll think that'll make you stand out, because not a lot of designers spend a lot of time with text. They're great designers, but they don't talk about their work in text format or in written format. So that alone will make you stand out.
Thanks, Andre. You know what, guys? After hearing everything you said, I therefore conclude that to stand out, you need a solid online portfolio. Yes, am I right? Yes? So that leads me to my next question. Now, how? Can you share with us some tips on how to make a killer online portfolio? This time we start with Tiger.
Hey, yeah. Number one thing for me is do work that makes you happy. And I think it shows in your work when you do work that makes you happy. And that doesn't mean that you did work for a client. Okay, so I think a lot of newbie designers don't feel like you need to show a client's work, because the reality is when you start in design, you'll find I have a major rule, for example, never show work that you don't like. And a lot of the times, clients like your least impressive piece of work to you. I think that's what happens a lot. So I never show a design that I don't personally like, and then I end up fighting for my design too. Sometimes you also have to convince people to like your design, and they turn around. So there's a salesmanship aspect to it. But I think the biggest tip is when you do work that makes you happy, that doesn't mean that you're doing work that you got paid for. So pick an imaginary project and pick an imaginary client, redesign their logo, redesign their website. You can put that as part of your portfolio. It is completely legitimate to do that. So I would say in that way, you can now come up with a lot of impressive portfolio pieces that, regardless if you got paid for it or not, are going to be something that will get you a gig or a job later.
Thanks, Tiger. This time we'll hear from Andre. Andre, how to make an online portfolio that's going to be a killer.
Okay, so I agree with Tiger. Your work actually shows exactly what you're feeling, I guess, when you're doing the work. So some of the best projects that we've executed were when the team was all giddy, all happy, and all excited about it. Then when you see a project and it's not so good or not at par with versus the things that you've done in the past, you can look back and see that everyone wasn't really feeling it during that shoot day. So choose the best work and create something as if it were the project that you always dreamed of, right? So it's completely legitimate to create something, a design or a redesign of something that you don't agree with, and again talk about it. Why do you think your design makes the most sense? So one of the challenges that we faced actually in Arsenal when we started reaching out to clients was we didn't have a portfolio. So of course, none of us wanted to bring with us any of our previous company's projects. So we decided, why don't we just create stuff, right? Why don't we just conceptualize a show that we want to sell, that we want to eventually sort of like roll out to brands, and that's exactly what we did. So we came up with this concept called influences, and this basically featured people from different industries and show them exactly doing their craft and what makes them different. So this by producing the show, it allowed us to sort of like showcase our storytelling, showcase our video editing, our production process, the music, the audio, everything that had to do with what exactly we wanted to provide. So as of late, the show has been picked up by iFlix, and we've actually used it as pegs
to sell, our services to brands. Now, that particular project is not necessarily yet, revenue generating. So what we do instead is we apply this kind of work or this kind of like treatment to the brands that we partner with. So regardless of the brand, it can be a cosmetics company, it can be a hairbrush, it can be a courier company. We're still doing work that we're proud of. So what I'm proud of with Arsenal is any particular project or content that we've produced, I can just randomly pull something and then I'll show it to you, and it's gonna be good. So now our work speaks for itself. So I hope that answers it.
Thank you for those tips, Andre. Next, Rachel, how did you make your own portfolio a killer and got you to where you are now?
Well, I mean, I guess Tiger touched on that subject earlier where you actually do the things you love or choose the projects that you actually love. When you're a freelancer, I mean, you actually have that level of control in a way. You get to choose which clients and which projects, which companies you want to work with. So, I mean, there is a level of control that you have over your portfolio. So, you, in a way, you can kind of curate what goes in there. You have that choice as a creative person. You don't have to just show every single thing that you've done. Actually, that is like probably the worst thing you can do because it confuses the person who's reviewing your body of work. They don't really want to see stuff that you hand drawn drawings when you were a kid. They don't need to see that. They don't need to look at your full body of work. Choose only your best work, definitely. And I guess for me, it's really about going back to basics. Sometimes you can have like the most perfect, portfolio, a nice body of work, but when you look at the fine details, you'll find like typo errors here or there, or you use like the wrong word to describe something, or you labeled something the wrong way. Actually, some people do pick up on those details, and it can kind of turn them off. So really, just make sure that your presentation is very polished, and try to get feedback on your portfolio, from mentors and from colleagues that you trust. Sometimes it really helps to get someone else's eyes on the project before you show it to a client. That way, you get perspective. You're not just in this tunnel vision that you created something and you think you're the best. You need the feedback to actually improve and create something that's really really well put together. And yeah, definitely. I mean, if you want to level up your portfolio, you can also kind of look to your idols or the icons in the industry. Who do you look up to in the graphic design field, in the web design field? Take a look at their body of work and see how they kind of did what they did in their portfolios. Maybe you can pick up a tip or two when looking at their body of work and apply that into your own presentation.
Totally agree with you, Rachel. Nothing wrong with getting inspirations. And now we go to AJ. AJ, your thoughts and take on the topic.
Everyone mentioned everything that I've applied in my own career. I think really what really resonates with, at least in my experience, was really building out the things that your portfolio based on the things that you love. And Tiger mentioned it. I also Andre's story. A lot of my pieces on my work isn't for real clients. It's really a lot. A lot of them are just passion projects that I created based on my own interests and my own passions. And I feel like probably 80% of my career is based on just me doing, or I got the client for it. And I think Tiger and Andre, they've also proven this method. And so another thing would be, in a more practical sense, is really building. When you create a portfolio, I suggest to young designers is do a basic, buy a URL. That to me is it has to be like your phone number. You have to have it. And then second, when you have the URL of your name or whatever company or whatever freelance name you go by, use that as your email address. I've seen thousands of portfolios where I've been driven to a Dropbox folder or a Drive folder, and there's like 100 folders inside, and I have to figure it out. And as a designer trying to hire other people, that's a waste of time for me, and a waste of time for HR people or creative directors who are trying to hire you. So to me, I think of like everybody has an Instagram. You have to have a URL. You have to have an email in your URL. It just shows a little bit of care, I think, for your own work. And yeah, and everybody else mentioned it and really talked about writing. You know, the the art of writing is so important as creatives, I believe, because we are in the business of communication, and the visuals aren't enough at this point. You have to tell the story behind the work that you do, and those pieces of your work in a portfolio should show the bigger story or the bigger picture of who you are and what you want to do as a creative person. I see a lot of portfolios where I think Rachel was mentioning, like, with drawings of when they were kids. It has to be very very curated. And here's a little trick that I do. Actually, I don't show the work. I only show the work that I want to do on my portfolio, and I show the great work that I've done, whether it's recent or in the past. But the secret there is I also have a dozen other portfolios that are hidden, and they are really work that could do but not necessarily want to do at this point. So at this time in the pandemic, you sometimes you can't choose, right? You can't choose what kinds of clients you want you could work with. So I have some set of skill sets over the 20 years that I can kind of do this. So I have a bit of work there. So I have a PDF that I can just access and show to somebody that might need this kind of work. So, but that's just because right now it's
All right, AJ, we are losing you a bit, but we will get back to you in just a little while. Now, James, I know it is tough to be the last to be giving tips, but is there any more you'd like to add?
Yeah, this is the really tough part here. So everyone just told everything I had in mind. But just to add to that, a struggle with designers is actually putting every kind of like skill set in their portfolio, which doesn't make sense if you're like an employer or if you're going to interview like a designer. My best suggestion if you're going to create a killer online portfolio is pick one creative field that you are great with and highlight that. You don't have to put in if you know like XD or if you know like Illustrator, but you're in a beginner stage of that. You want to highlight what is your best role or your best experience or best expertise in your job. So that highlights what is the most important thing that you do and what kind of value you can give to like a client or like an employer. So you want to highlight those things to your like portfolio there. Take down some of the things that you don't like, just like Andre and Tiger mentioned earlier. So you want to keep your portfolio as clean and organized as possible. So employers doesn't need to go around a ton of like folders inside like a Google Drive or Dropbox, and it throws away your like opportunity there if you're giving that kind of like representation in your end. So presentation is another key factor of building a portfolio. Adding to it is like putting it on like a platform like Behance is good, but having your own domain represents a lot more confidence and commitment that you're really into this kind of like role that you're looking for. If you're either looking for like a client or uh, looking for like a studio where you want to work with somebody, So yeah, it's pretty much you need to build something from there. If you're like a new grad that you don't have like some experience, you kind of need to find some time, your free time, to do your own like personalized projects. That way you have something to show, like what kind of like soft skills or hard skills you can show with an employer to that extent. So you don't have to copy somebody's work. You just need to get inspiration and build it from there.
Thanks for that, James. To all who are watching, I hope you are taking down notes because everything they just shared, all those tips have been proven and tested, tried and tested. So we will take a short break for our viewers to kind of process everything they just heard. I am know and I'm sure I've been seeing it on the comment section below. Ang dami pang gustong itanong sa ating panelists. But before we get into that, we will pause for a short break. We'll be back. And we're back. Now let's get on to the next question. Another thing that we would like to know and ask our panelists is about their experience in freelancing, a little backgrounder. So, what is it like to be a freelance designer? This time we will ask James.
Yeah, so in my career, I was a freelancer back in like 2004 to 2006. Actually, I started 2003. When I started like a multimedia designer, I quickly went off from the company and started doing freelance. That came about that I reached out to some of my friends who basically had worked with another agency, and some of them are actually business owners who reach out to me and ask me, "Hey, can you help me out on building a website for me?" Sure, why not? So I kind of learned from my previous job how we build like websites. So the part where you do freelancing, you kind of need to know how to communicate. That's one. Build trust with your clients. Number two, you need to communicate and give respect to their time and your time as well. So the things those accumulate in your like senses needs to be solid, and you have to bring the best of what you can do. You also need to like uh, build out some network within your friends or even with connections to make your sale as a freelancer. And the one of the biggest like struggles with freelancers are finance. So you kind of need to always check on your financing because costing is quite the most heaviest thing that you need to consider when pricing your job as a designer. You don't want to put yourself to like a really lowball project. You don't want to like accept a project that you can't actually do. You have to be sure that you can deliver that and bring what they would expect from you. That's the biggest thing that you would expect as a freelance designer.
Thank you, James. We keep seeing Rachel on the screen. Rachel, yes, how is it like being a freelance designer?
I don't have a lot of experience in the freelance world. I only spent a couple months as freelancer before I actually discovered the company that I work for. But in that short period of time, I can say that it was a little bit it was very stressful because there's no constant flow of income. You don't know, when your next project is going to come. It's very inconsistent. And I guess if you don't have a steady flow of clients, or if you don't partner up with a client or a company, it's very tentative. I mean, as a designer, it's not the best environment to be in, but for those who get the hang of it, for those who are able to adhere to like a client or a community where they can get a steady flow of tasks and projects, it can be very rewarding. That I know. I mean, I've worked with freelancers and designers that have gone in and out of freelancing in their career. And I think there is a certain charm to it that you actually have that level of flexibility and freedom to do essentially whatever you want. You're not tied to like a 9 to 5 schedule. You're tied to specific projects that you don't really feel like working on. So there's lots of excitement that's involved. You get to choose really what you want to work on. Um, so I mean, there's like pros and cons to it for sure, and I guess as long as you have a support system that will definitely help you along the way. If you have a mentor or like a senior designer or someone that you trust, that really helps in your career growth as a freelancer. Sometimes you can feel very isolated, that you don't really get to bounce your ideas off of a team or someone who's just sitting right next to you. You don't have that opportunity. So sometimes just having someone to talk to, someone to show your work from time to time, just to make sure that you're on track and kind of improving in your skill set, that really helps. And yeah, just definitely trying to get feedback as a freelancer. So it can be tough, but it can be rewarding as well.
How about you, Tiger? What is it like of being a freelance designer?
It's brutal. That's my word for it. You sometimes you can't choose your client, and there's also times where you have to fire your client. I've had that experience. I think there's a tendency sometimes when you're a young designer to just take all comers because you're excited. And what happens is you end up going at the lowest rate, and you're getting clients that are what I call sometimes they're just that's what they're looking for, the lowest rate, not the best work, right? And at the same time, you'll get clients where, and I know almost everybody here has experienced this, where you go from your coded designs like comp 1A and suddenly it becomes comp 5Z or whatever, and there's just no decision making, right? So I think what it's like is you eventually learn that your time is the most important thing that you can focus on, and that you've got to manage your time really well, and you've got to manage your client really well to keep them on track. They don't know design, right? You know design. You're the expert. So you're not an order taker. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap where you become, all right, let's just do whatever the client wants me to do. No, your job is actually to redirect and direct clients because you have studied it, you're an expert into it, and you're pointing them in a direction that's not a science. You have to remember, design is art, right? It's a matter of liking and perspective. So point them into your perspective. That's why they hired you. When you don't do that, what happens is that you get a design that the client pointed you in, right? And if you really want to become somebody who's good at their field, it's because you have an opinion, and that opinion is what they're paying for. It's not the number of hours you spent on a project.
AJ, it was brutal for Tiger. What is it like to you?
Same. It's pretty brutal for everybody, especially if you're starting out as a freelance designer, and you really have to pick up a lot of skills. And the thing that you're good at in your own creative field is only your foundation, and that doesn't bring you anywhere else unless you learn how to create a system for you to get clients, and then a system for you to manage clients properly, and a system for you to be able to pass on the work to other people if you need some help. And and that and that whole, basically you're a project manager, and also making sure you make money. So the freelancing is essentially a business, and if you get into freelancing, you get into business, you get into entrepreneurship, which I think is very in line with being a creative person at entrepreneurship, because you take risks essentially. And so having to do all those things and pick up all those skills, you also have to build your whole story and your whole brand while juggling all those skills um, and the most important thing is really making a living out of it and that skill is really finding clients, making sure they're happy, delivering the work, and then making sure there's more clients coming in the pipeline. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Thanks, AJ. Now, Andre, how is it like working with freelance designers? Is it also brutal?
So I don't have any experience with freelancing, but I've worked with a couple of them, and I've heard a lot of horror stories. So in the perspective of the designer or the producer, basically, my advice is this: make sure that your contract is airtight. A lot of these projects are done already, and some of the biggest brands are the ones who are not paying. Sometimes it takes them 3 months, 6 months when work is already done. So again, make sure that your contracts are airtight and that you're covered for whatever reason or whatever happens. My experience as a client working with a freelancer, there's also horror stories that I'd like to share, but in a nutshell, be reliable because your reputation is only one angry client away from not getting any more work, especially if you're working with an agency. And if you give this agency a good working relationship, then you can almost make sure that the influx of projects will be a lot. It will be consistent. But again, if you work with an agency and then you turn them off because you're not responsive, you do not commit your timelines and so on, your promises basically are not delivered, then don't expect any more business from that. And you can expect also that they're going to talk to their other agency friends. They're going to tell them the horror stories, and everyone, no one likes horror stories, right? So um, be reliable and be responsive, and those are the two main things actually, and your client will be happy.
Thanks, Andre. We all know we've been experiencing this pandemic for about 8 months now. Now, how does this affect the design freelancing in the Philippines? Andre, let me go back to you.
Well, to be honest, I don't think it would change anything in the industry of freelancing. Actually, I'd like to believe that there will be more opportunities for freelancers out there because brands and companies are holding back with their budget, so they're not going for the expensive design firms or companies. So they're actually looking for um, you know more affordable solutions. So if anything, I think this is a good opportunity for freelancers to get more business. One idea is this: you can basically look at influencers who are very popular these days. Check them out. If they don't have a website yet, offer them your services, and then for sure they'll say yes, and for sure they'll help you get your brand out there or your portfolio out there. So I think this is a good opportunity for freelancers to bag more design work here in the Philippines.
Thanks, Andre. Now, James, how can freelancers navigate through this new normal?
Well, the pandemic shown us a lot of like jobs that can be done remotely, including other professions that resisted the transition to remote work. Even like lawyers or even doctors have gone like online with their profession. So designers can actually who can adapt to these kind of changes quickly can make the transition easier for their clients and will have an edge over their competitors. So the suggestion with creative talents is to like keep in touch with their clients, keep the connections open, check on them, join with communities, and check with check with everybody who actually needs your kind of service. That would really help you out with during this pandemic.
Now, to AJ, how are you and your company, your people are trying to navigate through this new normal?
Well, I was severely affected by the pandemic because I had lost a major client in the US at the onset of. They were in the business of selling designs for apparel, and their biggest clients were the mall brands, essentially like Target and all those companies. And obviously everything was closed down, and so we had to end our relationship of like 9 years, I believe, at that time, earlier this year. And so I had to apply the same skills of being a freelancer and trying to really find the work, and also at the same time telling people about the things that I do in terms of building my own brand. So it's always about um, and moving forward. I think that's what a lot of us have to do. It's essentially, even when the work isn't there, you have to do some kind of work and to show the people that you are being busy and you are thinking about things and you are doing creative work and showing that to people. And when that happened to me, I had just recently created a little passion project of mine where I I created a list of all these freelance designers who had lost projects, and posted that on LinkedIn, and then like to the whole network of LinkedIn, and then somebody found it from abroad and said, we are actually looking for talent in the Philippines, and reached out to me. And so that became sort of like a client of mine, and they became a client of mine, and I had to then hire some other people to work with that person. So when there's a pandemic like this, the work never stops, whether the client is there or not. So that's my advice.
Mhm. Now, Tiger, with our current situation, how did this affect the design freelancing here in the Philippines?
Yeah, I think number one is everything went online. So what you have to do, I think, is when there's something that is just so momentous, you have to adapt, right? And then as a freelance designer, you have to look at where the clients are going, right? And I'll give you a very good example. Just the Philippines alone, suddenly everybody's doing takeout. Suddenly everybody's shopping online. So as a freelance designer, I think what I would be thinking is, how do I get into e-commerce? How do I put a focus on that, right? How do I, for example, with our other business in Age and Image, is that there was a time where people, when they're looking at open houses for real estate, you're trying to buy your next house, great, what do? On Sunday, you go visit 10 houses, okay? The pandemic changed that. And what happened for our real estate clients is now people look at 10 websites online, and then they'll look at one house. So you have to look at where the behaviors change. And in every industry, they're changing. And as a freelance designer, developer, look for where it went online and focus on that smaller pool, a niche pool of things that you can possibly do to start really increasing your business. And I want to add one more thing. I think what people touched on today is that work on things that are adjacent to just design. So if you're in design, you also actually have to be pretty good in content, right? If you're designing a Instagram post, you have to make sure that you're not so wordy where you're having 20 words and then expecting people to read a story or Instagram post like that. So it's kind of a development of skills. Is how do you get that down to 3 to 4 words, right? And then communicate to that to the client that says, hey, you have 2 seconds to get somebody's attention. Make sure it counts.
All right, finally, Rachel.
Yes, well, freelancing in the new normal, that kind of changes the whole dynamic of, your day-to-day routine, I'd say. My number one tip would be to work on your portfolio. So exactly what this webinar is all about. Use the extra time you have to actually polish and curate your portfolio. And jumping off of what Tiger said, you really need to keep an ear to the ground and what's going on in the world around you. So as you'll notice, like everything has gone digital. There's been an upsurge in small businesses left and right. Basically in every single community, we're no longer going to malls and shopping like normal. So it's like almost every other person is setting up their own business. And what does that mean? They actually need the marketing and branding and design expertise to go along with that. So if you're someone who's looking for new gigs or like your next opportunity, that's probably or most likely something that you might want to, dabble into and learn more about. Learn how digital marketing works. Learn about paid ads, learn about landing pages and things like that. Things that can expand what you already know, but can still, ensure that you have steady income coming in. So basically, just being flexible and adaptable to whatever comes along the way. If you need to learn something as well, if there's software or tools that you're not super confident about, now's the time to actually start practicing and honing in on those skills. You have time, let's say after hours, to maybe listen to webinars, to sign up for free classes, or even paid classes if you have the extra budget for that. But basically invest in like the tools, the tech, and the training so that you can become a more successful freelancer.
Thank you for that. So para sa mga creatives and designers na nanonood sa atin ngayon, there are a lot of ways to still thrive during this pandemic, tulad na lang ng narinig nyo. So I hope you really listen sa mga suggestion ng ating experts. So right now, we all know and we can see that there are more Filipino talents emerging in the design industry. So the question is that, how can we give ourselves more chance to get more gigs in 2020, which is a month and a half from now? Let's start with Rachel.
If you want more gigs, you definitely need to put yourself out there. Like Tiger mentioned earlier, you can't just publish your portfolio and pray that people will notice you. It's an exercise in marketing yourself. So don't be shy. Be confident in your skills, even if you have a small body of work. It matters, where you post it and how often you post it, and the way you explain your work to the public. It also helps to anchor yourself with a community of like-minded individuals. Here locally in the Philippines, there are plenty of, let's say, groups on Facebook where you can, just message, fellow graphic designers, web designers, bounce off ideas. Don't be shy. That's actually where you can thrive and where you can kind of hear about new projects or companies that are looking for designers just like you. Keep in touch with your clients. Make sure to keep up your relationships with them. Don't just drop off the face of the earth. Definitely stay active. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but it really helps to create a schedule and stick to it. Don't kind of slack off. Keep creating, because that's how you're going to get better. That's how you're going to amass that body of work, and how you're going to stay active and creative as a freelancer.
AJ, how can creative talents book more gigs this 2021?
I'm gonna ride on what Rachel said. It's really about sharing the work that you do, whether it's an actual project for a client or just some personal work that you created for like essentially, if you're a fan of something, create work around that, whether it's a movie or a basketball player or a musician. And that in this pandemic, that's really very critical to my own career, when I keep doing that and I keep sharing wherever I can. Recently just posted, I talked to you earlier about the work on LinkedIn, where I got a client, and I got another client over there because I had just shared the work that I did for myself, essentially, and no client. And just so happened that somebody who was in my network, who I've worked with for like many years ago, like the post that I put up on LinkedIn, and then another guy who he knew was the CEO of a company that I've always wanted to work for, and that CEO himself reached out to me and said, I want to work with you. I saw the work that you posted, and my friend liked it, and then things happen. Like if you, I discovered yesterday, like one kind of luck is when you just do a lot of stuff around, just stir things up, and then it's kind of like a petri dish where you just move things around, and sometimes it'll stick, and something will come out of nothing, right? And so, in my whole career, it's basically been that. It's some kind of magic happens because I started to stir things around, and essentially creating my own luck and being able to work with the biggest brands, and that's how I got to work with them because I created the work first and I shared it.
Yeah, and I'm going to focus more on the business of design, right? And when you're talking about design as a business, you don't want to be one and done. Okay, you want clients that keep coming back to you all the time. So you have to put your mindset in a position of how do I get my clients to come back to me, right? And your clients are decision makers, and they're busy, and they don't always remember that you're out there and that you're a resource and that you've done awesome work, right? So you have to constantly find a way to make sure that your work and your latest availability it stays in front of them. So, kind of to the point that AJ and Rachel were making, one thing that you can do today is that if you have a client that you've worked with before and you had a happy experience, every time you put out something new, aside from posting it on social, email to them. You go, hey, I did this recently. And what that tends to do is create this effect where you're on the fringes of their mind. And the next time something happens, you're going to be the first person that they go to. And this is true of any marketing, right? You always want to have a little bit of a subconscious effect. And don't be afraid that you're thinking of spamming people. You're not. People glance at that for 1-2 minutes. You're a connection, you're real, you've worked with them before. They might not immediately act on it, but the next time something comes up or somebody mentions, hey, I need a graphic designer to do this website, the first person they're going to think about is you. So, just make sure that you're always branding yourself and marketing yourself, but not on an island, that you're pushing it out all the time. And you'll be surprised about how much work and how many more gigs you're going to get in 2021 because you made an effort to push it out.
Yeah, why not just join in Tile Crowd? Well, to add to everyone's opinion, you have to have this passion with yourself, like doing the work. You should like it or love it, for short. Keep your clients coming back to you. Share your work on social media. Get it out there. Tell your friends that this is the work you're doing. It basically stems out to everyone, and relatively that network grows into your connections as well.
So, James, you just beat me to it. I would like to say, join Tao Crowd because they're intentionally, trying to help freelancers with all of this information, with this webinar. It'll be good to rewatch this whole thing if you weren't able to start it when we started this webinar, because there's a lot of golden advice from Tiger, from AJ, from Rachel, from James, and I'm sure if you tune in and subscribe to all of their content, I'm sure there's going to be more of this coming out. So join Tao Crowd, get yourself out there, fix your portfolio, and make sure you spell out put the context there.
Those are all useful and practical insights. Again, a big, big thank you to our speakers. You deserve a round of applause. But we're not done yet because I'm sure our viewers, marami pa silang gustong itanong. And if you guys have questions, just feel free and keep commenting on our YouTube and Facebook chat boxes. Our panelists will try to answer all of those in just a little while. But for now, let's take a quick breather and pause for a break. And just like that, we are back, and it's time for our Q&A. Let us start right away because we have a lot of questions. So we start with our live question from Facebook and on YouTube. This one is from Moy TV via YouTube. How do I sign up? I can actually answer. No, I'm kidding. But maybe Rachel could answer. How can I sign up?
Yes, basically go over to taocrowd.com and you'll find the steps there. Actually, you can sign up not just to be a designer, but there are other roles as well. You can be a developer, you can do quality assurance, you can be a writer. It really depends on your skill set. I'm assuming you're applying to be a designer since you're joining our webinar today. But basically, yeah, prepare your application, usually your CV or your portfolio. Drop us a line. Just send in, the contact form, and we'll get back to you with your application.
And with that, sign up now. Moving on to our next question, this time from Facebook. Rudy Rojas asks, advice on project management. Best approach when juggling more than 2 projects. Maybe anyone could answer?
Right. I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at it. On project management, make sure that you choose a project management tool and not just email. Okay. And, there's a lot of project management tools out there like Monday.com. You've got Jira. You've got Basecamp. And what you're really doing there is you're creating a thread of work, and you're creating a series that a client can view and see everything that you've done, and realize exactly how much hours you've put in and how much work and how much concepts and whatnot. And when you do that, even with 1 or 2 clients, and you can do that fairly cheaply, they allow a lot of free trials. Later, you'll find that keeps you organized in way more ways. You can start assigning tasks to a client and say, hey, for us to get your design out, you have to do these 3 tasks. One is you have to approve this comp, and that's how we move forward to the next step and make progress. So I'd highly recommend that you invest a little bit in some kind of software that's not email, and there's a lot out there.
To our panelists, do you want to add anything to that? Just raise your hand. Nope. If none, let's go to the next question, also from Facebook. Russell Caras, what web host platform do you recommend for beginners who want to build their own online portfolio? So maybe this time we could ask Andre.
Finding platforms basically has to do with research, because there are platforms out there that your friends might recommend, and you try it, but then it's not necessarily working for you. So the good thing about the internet is everything that you need is there. Consult with Google, look at reviews, consult your friends, and then try it out. There are a lot of platforms that offer free trials, so I'd start with that. Find something that jumps out of the screen when you're looking at it, a brand that sort of like fits with your own brand. So because when you offer your services to a client, they'll start looking at the tools that you already use. So if you come into them and you're not using any of these tools, something that they're not familiar with, then you will have to rethink the way you do things. So find something that works for you, do your research, and make sure it's also fits your budget, because that it's an expense. Hosting is an expense, so that really matters.
All right, let's get to our next question. I tell you, panelists, we have a lot of questions. Next, from Anthony Palmera. What if company websites were already closed? I mean, you did great creating websites, but companies don't exist anymore. Do you think the content of your portfolio is still credible enough for you to showcase with your new clients? Anyone? Tiger?
Company websites are still closed. I'm not sure if I really understand that question. In my opinion, I'm just going to say that I don't think the platforms will disappear. I don't think company websites will eventually get out. And the reason is that companies want to get out a message that others can't control, and it actually fights with social media a bit, because a brand in social media is what people are saying about you. A brand in a company is what you're saying about yourself, and you have to put both up, right? So, and companies understand that. That's why I think websites will always be around and platforms will always be around. And as a designer in freelance, you're doing both. So that's a quick answer, I think. Too. I hope I understood that question correctly. But yeah,
For me, no. You don't have to buy a URL, but to me, I suggest buying a URL. But if you don't have the budget for that, then there's always websites that provide free portfolios, the websites where you can build on it, like Behance. If you don't have any budget to create your own website and buy your own URL, I would start with behance.net or dribble.com, and they're both free.
Yeah, definitely. You have to build the story behind your portfolio. You have to tell in your portfolio how you started as a designer, and even case studies like you put in there have to give the right context, because like interviewers, like design directors, find how you think, then how you present things. The design thinking part is the most crucial part when in terms of like UX design. It doesn't matter how good you are on Photoshop if you can't understand the flow works or even the user journey flows within that kind of platform. So it's essential to like tell the story, what's the pain points, build out the solution from there, and present things in a manner like it's progressively and understandable in a way other people, like other non-designers, would understand in that kind of level.
This time, question for Rachel from Rank Leiran via YouTube. What attributes would you like your target audience to think of when they look at your new branding?
If well, branding is very personal, so I mean, it's not really universal, but you do want to have a brand image that kind of is timeless. You don't want to hook onto trends, because that would mean you'd need to update your branding so often and so frequently. Try to choose something that is representative of you, but can also stand the test of time. So, I mean, try to stick to the basics. Try to stick to the classics whenever you're presenting yourself and your brand. I think it's respectable to always start off with a minimalist approach whenever you're presenting your work. You don't want your branding and your presentation to outshine the actual work that you're presenting. So try to keep it simple. When you're in doubt, less is usually more.
Now for Andre and AJ from Edward Jimenez via Facebook. What are the industries of your client? Or what are the industries of your client do you usually cater? Maybe we can go with Andre first.
We actually have a client pretty much in all verticals. We have courier company, we have beauty company, we've done insurance, we've worked with banks, automotive, we've worked with travel, airline. We pretty much work with all brands. We try to always keep at least one client per vertical, just to mix things up and just to learn from them. So that's that's what we do.
AJ?
For me, it's always been about the work for brands who are I'm a fan of, essentially. So essentially, like, like brands like Nike or Jordan Brand or the NBA, it really goes back to my own passions, and it's reflected in the work that I do, and I think it's important for me, at least, growing as a creative person and being able to do the work for clients that I want to work with primarily, and so that's what I put on my portfolio, and not showing and not trying to get work that I'm not interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's and a lot of them, it's sports, fashion, music, a lot of exciting stuff. If you go to my website, it says there, bold work for brave brands. So if you're a company that wants to work on a brave campaign or brave visual identity, then that's a company I want to work with.
Mm-hmm. Now, question from Guild Abelia Villamor via Facebook. Do you prefer hard coding with scripting or using CMS builders such as WordPress? James, maybe you can answer?
Well, it boils down to preference there. If you know coding yourself, you want to like practice that. But if you're like shy with coding, you can probably just use the CMS as a safe way to build your own portfolio from that point.
Thank you, James. Now, from Chai Ramento via YouTube. In curating your portfolio, how do you strike a balance between showing your identity as a designer and what appeals to the market or the client? Rachel?
Um, I would say your branding is more important than having to adjust to the client. If you present yourself professionally and in a polished way, you will attract companies and agencies and clients that respond to your aesthetic or to your brand. You don't need to alter your image or your brand every single time. Of course, that's what I was mentioning earlier. Have your core graphics, have your core brand, and then just be selective with the projects that you present, the skills that you put in the forefront. But I think it shouldn't take away from your personal brand. That should still be at the forefront and at the core of what you present.
Now, question from Leon James Emperado for Tiger. Tiger, what are the do's and don'ts of web developers or web designers?
Yeah, number one is you have to understand who your audience is, and this comes for any form of marketing and branding, right? If you're going, for example, for something as small as a URL, if your audience is worldwide, you shouldn't get a .ph URL. You should get a .com, because Google will reward the .com domain name in terms of web development. And what you're going for in a do for web development is you need to make sure that your website works in as many possible devices, in as many possible resolutions as possible. And what happens is really simple. If you create a website and a lot of your users are viewing it on a phone, like a smartphone, then you better be testing it on every single smartphone. And there's software that does that. There's CMSs that James mentions that does that. But you want to get the greatest possible viewing and people not getting hindered by speed, which Google actually will stop showing you in search results if your website's too heavy with graphics and whatnot. So you want your website to be fast. You want it to work in multiple devices, and you want it to have the most reach possible. And to do that, you have to choose the right way to design it that will make it happen in a good mobile experience or watching on a desktop like I'm looking at right now. So the don'ts are when you start viewing it or it stops working in all of those devices. And guaranteed that if your client sees it, you're gonna get an angry call. So you want to test it in as many possible places as possible.
Now for Andre. Should I create an agency brand name even if it's just me? Should I?
It depends on what your long-term goal is. So if you want to be sort of like a full-time freelancer, you can just use your name. If you're your plan is to eventually build a company and be known at this point, then might as well create a brand and stick to it. So bridge, you need to connect your long-term goals with your short-term goals. So look ahead and see where this brand will take you. But if it's just a short-term fix and you just want to be known, then I suggest you use your name. So it's going to be much easier to find you.
Thank you for that, Andre. Now for AJ. I am a newbie who wants to get started in freelancing. What design services should I offer?
Again, this really all goes back to what you're interested in. What do you want to do? And to me, it's a lot of people who are starting in this industry, whether they're students or getting into the freelance world. You have to get into it knowing what you want and knowing what you can offer, and it would be hard to to do things if you are not sure. So the question really is for you, and it has to go back to what you're interested in and what your passions are, and then mixing that with the things that you are good at. And those things could be how to create videos, how to create say portraits in Procreate. You're good at that, so do that thing, and then be able to find the market for that kind of work. And looking at being in this industry for like 20 years, working and working and freelancing for the last 12 years, I've seen many people like really develop their own niche in the design world, whether it's working in say animation, working in so publications, like working in gaming, and for myself, like working in apparel. There's just so many corners of design and creativity that you can sort of conquer, and realms for you to explore. So, and really it's all about you and what you're interested in. And so that question is really start with your interests, your passions, and mix that with the things that you're good at. And I feel like there will be a market, and there will be a buyer of that certain skill set that only you can bring.
Thank you, AJ. Now, the next question is directed to Rachel. I just graduated and have no work experience. What can I showcase on my portfolio?
Well, we covered this a little bit earlier, where you actually don't need to wait for a real client. You can just imagine your client. You can, choose any random brand and, present your proposed redesign or rebrand for it. That's one idea. So basically, you're working on stuff that you want to work on, and you're presenting your best work. You can also cite your experience in your internship if you've done an internship with a company and you've had the chance to work on design tasks. Sometimes people include their school projects, but I'd only suggest including that if it's really good or if it's really something you're proud to show. And of course, your side projects. If you want to get into blogging, that's something you can feature as, a representation of your work. Some people curate their Instagram feeds, or they blog about food and travel and lifestyle. You can create branding and you can create design work out of that. If you're into multimedia and video editing, apply yourself to those side projects and present that as your work instead. So at least while you're waiting for actual clients, you're kind of hitting two birds at one stone, while doing the stuff that you like and also building little bit of portfolio pieces here and there. So, just show a broad set of work. Pretty soon the clients will come.
Rachel, now this time for Tiger. I don't have a fine arts degree and have been learning on my own. Can I qualify to apply as a graphics designer?
Absolutely. And I think almost everybody in this panel will agree that. I think, to borrow a phrase from rap, game recognized game. When you see good work, I don't need really to see your resume. In fact, my questions are going to be on around how did you do that work? Because I want to make sure that you did it. I want to see your process in doing it. And if I see a bit of illustration, I'll ask, hey, what software did you use? Did you use a pencil, a tablet? How did you come up with this concept and whatnot? And you don't need a resume. You don't need a school degree to do any of this. I think some of the best developers that I've met never studied development. They learned everything off the internet, and I'm not seeing a computer science degree. And don't get me wrong, it's good to have, but I think when you're actually making decisions on who you're going to have as part of your team, you want to look at everything about your portfolio and your development style, and then that's 80% of the judgment that's going to be made on you. And I think almost every creative director will do the same thing. And the 20% will be, okay, what did you write on your resume? So as long as that part stands out, you're going to get gigs, you're going to get jobs, and you don't need to even be a graduate to get, a lot of that stuff going. I personally hired many developers and many designers who never went to school for it. And myself, I was an economics major, but I love design. And I think something that everybody can relate to is how many people do you know went to school for something and end up doing something else? And it's the same thing with the tech industry.
Thank you, Tiger. Now, AJ, should I mention all of my skills on design portals and job sites, even if I'm not as confident in all of them?
No. To me, it's that's the only. I'd only do that if I'm just desperate for work. But I don't want to do work that I'm not so good at and I'm not so confident in. So I would avoid trying to do that. Although, for example, I know a bit of just recently learning how to animate really simple stuff, but I don't put that as something that I'm good at, or yeah. But like I said, it always goes back to just focusing on a certain skill set and really be good at that skill set. And that's really how you can stand out from the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, AJ. Rachel, this time, what are your tips to present a series of designs for the first time to a client?
Okay. Well, you have to present it with confidence. Number one. I know most designers are usually kind of insecure, or they doubt the quality of their work. Whenever you're presenting something, you need to present it with positive energy. That really helps, because the client can pick up on that energy. If you sound hesitant or if you sound tentative, they'll pick up on that. So be confident with what you're presenting. Sometimes you even want to prepare some notes or some bullet points as to how you're going to defend your work, to justify why you chose this font, why you chose that color, why you chose to do something a certain way. So definitely believing in yourself. I know it sounds very cliche, but if you do, have that confidence whenever you're presenting your portfolio or you're presenting an actual piece to a client, then it will help you out. If your client seems a little bit picky, it helps to present different options, and that will actually reflect on your range and your diversity. So it means you can actually present several different styles, you're not like a one trick pony where you have the signature style and that's it. So sometimes if you have the luxury of presenting two different styles to your client, then go for it.
Thank you, Rachel. Now down to our final question for the day. So this is for any one of our panelists who can recommend a book or books on design that they can study or read.
Maybe we can go around, but for me, anything that's Jacob Nielsen. I think that he is an absolute influencer on minimalist thinking and design, whether it's UX, whether it's use of white space, whether it's how to look at typography and then content. I think if you understand all of those things, and there's a quote out there where if you design something and you cut away everything to its base and you can't cut away anything more, that's your design, right? And I think it's really important that you go minimalistic and you really get to the point and the core. And if you can describe that without words, it's even better. So you kind of start with a lot and you go to a little, and suddenly you can communicate something very, very quickly. I think that any book that describes how to do that, and you'll find that the top agencies do that really well if you look at the work.
Thanks, Tiger. To our other panelists, do you have any more book recommendations? No more?
To be honest, I haven't read a single book on design because, like I said, I mean, I started my career in as an account manager, and I didn't really get into the creative side of the business until when I started Arsenal. So, but one of the books that really meant something to me, it's called "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek. So I think with anything that you do, anything that you put your heart into, you need to know why you're doing it in the first place, because things are going to get very difficult, especially if when you're a beginner, inexperienced, and so on. Things aren't so easy because there's someone's going to be better than you, more experienced than you, has more connections than you. But always look back to why you're doing it in the first place. Why did you start? Why did you want to get into it? If you keep on reminding yourself that, then you're just going to keep on moving forward. So Simon Sinek, Start with Why.
Thank you so much. And with that, we end our Q&A section and our discussion on web designers build your brand, creating a killer online portfolio, and getting more gigs in 2021. So I would like to thank our panel for our discussion. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. You gave a lot of tips, a lot of techniques, insight, suggestion that will definitely help all our viewers for today. Again, maraming salamat.
Thanks everyone.
Maraming salamat.
Now, Tao Crowd community, it is time to announce the winner of Tao Crowd's design contest. The winner will get a brand new Samsung A50. So, these are the mechanics for the announcement. You have to be present in this live stream to validate your win. So, kung ang pangalan mo ang natawag, you have 20 seconds to type in, "I'm here." Again, you have to type in the comment section, "I am here," on your YouTube or Facebook chat box. The winning design was chosen by our panelists. Kaya naman, ready na ba kayo? Are you ready for our announcement? We have the name right here, right now. And so, without further delay, the winning design work is by James Soteco. Congratulations, James Soteco. So are you here? You have 20 seconds to comment, "I'm here." Again, that is James Soteco. Yes, present. He is here. Congratulations. You just won yourself a brand new Samsung A50. Again, congratulations to our winner. We've seen a lot of fantastic design works, and you guys could even be Tao Crowd's next design partner. So go ahead, head on to www.taocrowd.com now and be part of the fastest growing community of Filipino freelancers. So again, I would like to thank our panelists, Tiger, Rachel, James, Andre, and AJ. To our audience, our viewers via Facebook or YouTube, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned as much as I did. Again, my name is Apple David, and I will see you again on the next Tout Tuesday.